It was a cold winter morning in Ontario, Canada. Snow covered the playground of St. Holloway Elementary School, a quiet building that looked peaceful from the outside. Children laughed, backpacks bounced on their shoulders, and teachers stood near the entrance, greeting students like any normal school day. But that school had a secret buried deep in its walls. Among the students was a boy named Ethan Miller. He was 12 years old, intelligent, quiet, and known as one of the brightest students in his class. Teachers admired him. Students respected him. But what no one knew was that Ethan had been seeing something that no one else could. It started 2 weeks earlier. During math class, Ethan heard a soft sound behind him. Not footsteps, not a voice, just a slow, dragging noise. When he turned around, nothing was there. Only the old classroom door, slightly open. That night, Ethan dreamed of the school hallway. Empty, dark, endless. Lockers lining the walls like silent witnesses. At the end of the hallway stood children. Not alive, not dead. Their faces pale, eyes black, mouths stitched shut. When Ethan woke up, his bed sheets were soaked in sweat. The next day at school, strange things began happening. Lights flickered during class. The temperature dropped suddenly in certain rooms. Children complained about hearing whispers during recess. One girl claimed someone pulled her hair in the bathroom. Another boy said he saw muddy footprints leading into a locked classroom. Teachers blamed imagination. Parents blamed stress. But Ethan knew better. During lunch break, Ethan was sitting alone when he felt a cold breath on his neck. A child's voice whispered directly into his ear. "Why are you here?" Ethan froze. He turned slowly. Behind him stood a little girl. She wore an old school uniform, different from theirs. Her hair was wet. Her shoes were covered in mud. She smiles, and then she disappeared. That evening, Ethan searched the school's history online. What he found made his hands shake. 30 years ago, St. Holloway Elementary was built on the site of an old boarding school, a school that had burned down in a mysterious fire. 7 children died. Their bodies were never found. The official report said it was an accident, but the rumors said otherwise. That night, Ethan wrote one sentence in his notebook. "They are still here." The next morning, the school announced something unusual. Due to unexplained incidents, certain areas of the building would be closed, including the old basement. That was the same place Ethan had seen in his dreams. And that was where the real horror was waiting. The school basement was officially closed, but that only made it more terrifying. Teachers warned students to stay away, yet whispers about the place spread faster than fear itself. Ethan felt drawn to it. Every time he walked past the stairwell leading down, the air became colder. The lights flickered, and somewhere below, something knocked, slowly, patiently. That afternoon, during science class, a fire alarm went off unexpectedly. Students rushed into the hallway, confused and noisy. In the chaos, Ethan heard again. His name, not shouted, not spoken, whispered. "Ethan." He turned toward the basement door. It was open. Before he could think, his feet moved on their own. He slipped away from the crowd and stepped inside the stairwell. Each step downward felt heavier, as if the air itself was pulling him in. The basement smelled of damp wood and rusted metal. Old lockers lined the walls, covered in dust and scratches. Deep scratches like fingernails had clawed at them. Then he saw them. Small handprints on the wall. Burn marks around the edges. Suddenly, the door behind him slammed shut. The lights went out. Ethan's heart pounded as soft footsteps echoed around him. Not adult footsteps. Children's footsteps. From the darkness, figures began to appear. 7 of them. Children in old uniforms. Their skin charred. Their eyes hollow and burning like dying embers. One stepped forward. It was the girl from before. "You can see us," she said softly. "That's why you're here." Ethan tried to speak, but his voice failed him. She pointed to the far wall. A symbol was carved into the concrete. "A warning. They locked us down here," she whispered. When the fire started, no one came. The lights suddenly flickered back on. Ethan was alone. Moments later, teachers burst into the basement, having found him missing. They scolded him, punished him, and warned him never to return. But Ethan knew something had changed. That night, the dreams returned. But this time, The children weren't silent. They were screaming, and the screams were getting closer. Part 3. English horror story script, smooth flow voiceover. Part 3. After the basement incident, Ethan was no longer the same. Dark circles formed under his eyes. He barely spoke in class, and every time the bell rang, he flinched, as if the sound hurt him. Other students began to notice strange things too. A boy in 5th grade went missing for nearly 10 minutes during recess. When he returned, he was crying and repeating the same sentence. They were standing in a line, waiting. Teachers searched the school cameras. The footage showed the boy walking into the hallway. Then nothing. For 10 full minutes, the hallway was empty. At night, Ethan's dreams became clearer. He saw the fire, flames crawling up the walls, children banging on locked doors, and adults walking away. One night, Ethan woke up and found muddy footprints leading from his bedroom door to his window. Outside, in the snow, 7 sets of child-sized footprints ended abruptly, right beneath his window. At school, the haunting escalated. Bathroom mirrors fogged up on their own. Words appeared in dripping letters. Help US. A substitute teacher fainted after hearing children singing inside an empty classroom. The song was old, outdated. No one recognized it. Ethan tried to warn teacher, but when he spoke about the children, her face went pale. She whispered, "You've seen them too?" She told Ethan the truth. Years ago, her grandmother worked at the boarding school before the fire. She said the children were locked in the basement as punishment. When the fire broke out, the keys were missing. The doors never opened. The spirits weren't angry. They were trapped. That afternoon, the school announced an emergency assembly. Structural issues, they said. The basement would be sealed permanently. When the announcement ended, Ethan heard the whisper again. If they seal it, we disappear forever. The temperature dropped. Lights shattered. Children screamed. And from the basement door, black smoke began to rise. The spirits were no longer waiting. They were coming. The school went into lockdown. Teachers rushed students into classrooms as alarms blared through the halls. But the doors, they wouldn't close. Something invisible was holding them open. Black smoke poured out from the basement stairwell, crawling along the floor like it was alive. The smell of burning would fill the air. Children began crying. Then the singing started. 7 voices. Soft, broken, echoing through the walls. Lockers slammed open one by one. Classroom lights burst. Windows frost over from the inside. Ethan stood frozen in the hallway, staring toward the basement. The girl appeared in front of him again. Her face was clearer now. Burn scars marked her skin. Tears of ash rolled down her cheeks. "We don't want to hurt them," she said. "We just want to be seen." She reached out her hand. "If you help us, the screaming will stop." Teachers shouted at Ethan to move, to run. But he knew running wouldn't end this. He followed her, down the stairs, into the basement. The walls burned and froze at the same time. Flames flickered without heat. Shadows screamed without sound. At the far end of the basement were 7 doors. Each door locked. Each door marked with claw scratches. "This is where we died," she whispered. Ethan noticed something on the floor. Old keys. Rusty. Hidden beneath debris. He grabbed them. The moment he touched the first lock, the school above shook violently. Walls cracked. Ceiling tiles fell. One by one, Ethan unlocked the doors. With each door opened, a child stepped out, their forms slowly becoming lighter, calmer. When the final door opened, the girl smiled. "Thank you." Suddenly, the smoke vanished. The fire stopped. The screams faded. Ethan collapsed. When he woke up, he was in the school nurse's office. Authorities filled the building. Parents cried. The basement was gone, sealed behind solid concrete. But Ethan felt something cold near his ear. A whisper. "We are not finished." The school reopened 2 weeks later. Officials claimed the incidents were caused by electrical failure and mass panic. The basement no longer existed. At least, that's what everyone was told. Students returned. Classes resumed. But St. Holloway Elementary was never the same again. Some children refused to enter the building. Others said they still heard singing during quiet moments. Soft, familiar, broken. Ethan came back too. He was quieter now, older in ways no child should be. One afternoon, During art class, a little boy drew 7 figures standing in a hallway. When the teacher asked who they were, the boy replied calmly, "They watch us so we don't get locked in." Ethan stopped drawing. That night, he dreamed of the girl one last time. She stood in the snow outside the school. "No wounds, no scars. Thank you for opening the doors," she said. But places like this, they remember. Ethan woke up to the sound of fire trucks. Across town, an old daycare building had caught fire. No one was hurt. But in the ashes, investigators found something impossible. 7 small handprints on a concrete wall. Years passed. St. Holloway Elementary was eventually demolished. A new school was built in its place. On the first day, the principal proudly announced, "This building is completely safe." As the children laughed and ran inside, a cold wind swept through the hallway. 7 lockers slammed shut at once. And somewhere deep within the walls, children's voices whispered together, "Never lock the doors.